Because the thing is, it kind of doesn't always matter where we are. We have these experiences regardless.
Right.
And so I think that humanity is what you're gonna really...
Alicia's creative life needs spaces that protect art and family. We'll tour her New York townhouse today to see how design fosters creativity and quiet wealth, and how one of music's most disciplined minds turned a piano in a one-room apartment into a $150 million legacy. Let me set the scene for you. It is early morning somewhere in New York City. The streets are still quiet, that rare 40-minute window before the city fully wakes up and reclaims its volume. And somewhere in a Harlem townhouse, a woman is at a piano, not performing. Not recording for a deadline, just playing the way she has been playing since she was 7 years old, when her mother scraped together enough to put a secondhand piano in a one-room apartment in Hell's Kitchen and changed the entire trajectory of her daughter's life. That woman is Alicia Keys, and the townhouse around her is not just a home. It is the physical expression of every decision she has made since that piano arrived. About art, about family, about ownership, about what it means to build a creative life that actually lasts. Today, we go inside that space. And by the time we're done, you are going to understand something about Alicia Keys that the Grammys and the Platinum records only hint at. Let's begin. The woman before the fame, Hell's Kitchen, and the piano that started everything. To understand the townhouse, you have to understand where Alicia Keys came from, because the distance between her origin and her current address is one of the most remarkable journeys in American music history. Alicia Augello Cook was born on January 25, 1981, in Hell's Kitchen, Manhattan. Not the gentrified, restaurant-dense neighborhood, it has since become the real Hell's Kitchen. Tough, loud, economically pressured, and dense with the kind of urban survival energy that either breaks you or builds you into something formidable. Her mother, Terria Joseph, raised her largely alone, working as a paralegal and part-time actress, providing stability in an environment that offered very little of it. What she gave Alicia beyond material comfort was a piano and the belief that talent, properly protected, was a passport to anywhere. Alicia began classical training at 7. She graduated valedictorian from the Professional Performing Arts School, signed to Columbia Records at 15, and in 2001 released Songs in a Minor, 12 million copies sold worldwide. 5 Grammys in a single night, #1 on the Billboard Hot 200. She was 19 years old. But here is what the Grammy narrative consistently overshadows. Alicia was never just an artist. She was a strategist. She co-wrote every song. She fought for creative control before most artists knew to ask for it. That instinct, that ownership of your art is the difference between a career and a legacy, is the foundation of everything that followed. Why New York? The city as creative infrastructure. Before we step through the front door, we need to spend a moment on the city itself, because Alicia Keys' decision to remain rooted in New York, specifically in Harlem, is not sentimental, it is strategic. And it tells you a great deal about how she thinks about the relationship between place and creative output. New York is, in many ways, the most expensive city in the world to maintain a primary residence. For an artist with the global reach of Alicia Keys, Los Angeles would make logistical sense. The recording studios, the film industry connections, the entertainment infrastructure are all concentrated there. London, where she has spent significant creative time, would place her at the center of a thriving music scene with distinct international energy. She could live anywhere, and she knows it. She stays in New York because New York is the city that made her. Not metaphorically, literally. The piano lessons, the street sounds, the gospel churches, the jazz clubs, the grit and grace of Manhattan's cultural layers are all audible in her music if you know how to listen for them. New York is not just her hometown. It is her sonic identity. Moving away from it would be like a painter moving away from their primary color, technically possible, practically diminishing. Harlem specifically carries additional significance. It is the historical and cultural capital of Black American artistic expression, the neighborhood of Langston Hughes and Duke Ellington, of the Harlem Renaissance and the Apollo Theater. of a tradition of Black creative excellence that stretches back over a century. For Alicia Keys, whose music is deeply rooted in that tradition, living and working in Harlem is not a lifestyle choice. It is an act of creative alignment. She is not borrowing the energy of that neighborhood. She is contributing to it, and the townhouse she has built there is part of that contribution. The townhouse, architecture as creative intention. Alicia Keys' New York townhouse is not the kind of property that announces itself loudly. It does not have the glass and steel grandeur of a modern celebrity compound or the studied extravagance of a Beverly Hills estate designed to impress visitors. What it has is something far rarer and far more powerful. It has intention. Every architectural and design choice in this space traces back to a single organizing principle: the protection and cultivation of creative life. The exterior is classic New York brownstone energy, elevated, the kind of facade that fits naturally into Harlem's architectural fabric while communicating, quietly, that something significant happens inside. Wide windows, clean lines, an entrance that feels welcoming rather than fortified, an important distinction for an artist who draws creative energy from human connection and does not want her home to feel like a fortress. The townhouse spans multiple floors, providing the vertical living arrangement that is distinctly New York in its logic. Each floor devoted to a different function, a different energy, a different chapter of daily life. The lower floors handle the communal, social, and family-facing functions of the home. The upper floors retreat inward, becoming progressively more private, more personal, more creatively charged. This vertical stratification of living is deliberate. It creates natural boundaries between the public-facing and private-facing dimensions of Alicia's life, a distinction she has spoken about extensively as being essential to her creative and emotional well-being. The overall aesthetic is warm, layered, and deeply personal. Think rich earth tones and natural materials, wood, stone, leather, linen, alongside carefully curated art, meaningful objects, and the kind of lived-in comfort that signals a home that is genuinely inhabited rather than architecturally performed. Nothing here is for show. Everything here is for living. The studio space, where the work actually happens. The crown jewel of Alicia Keys' townhouse is its dedicated creative studio, a professionally equipped recording and composing space built into the architecture of the home itself. This is the detail that separates her property from a simply expensive New York townhouse and elevates it into something more significant: a genuine creative infrastructure investment. The studio is acoustically engineered from the walls outward, not an afterthought soundproofed room, but a purpose-built space designed to capture sound at the level of quality her work demands. A grand piano anchors the room the way a grand piano has anchored every significant space in her life since age 7. Around it, the tools of modern music production: high-end monitoring speakers, a professional mixing console, microphone configurations suited for both intimate vocal capture and full band recording, and a digital audio workstation setup running the industry-standard software she uses in professional studios worldwide. What makes this space extraordinary is not the equipment, though the equipment is exceptional. It is the proximity to the rest of her life. The studio is not in a separate building. It is not a rented facility across town. It is here, in the home, 3 floors from where her sons sleep, 1 floor from where her husband works on his own music. Accessible at 10 in the morning, or 2 in the morning, or any moment in between when the creative impulse arrives and demands to be caught before it escapes. That immediacy, the ability to move from a conversation at the kitchen table to a recording session to a moment of silence at the piano, without transitions, logistics, or the friction of travel, is the most valuable feature of this entire property. It is what separates a musician who creates and a musician who creates prolifically and consistently at the highest possible level. Alicia Keys has released 8 studio albums, composed music for Broadway productions, written songs that have been recorded by artists across every genre, and collaborated with a roster of creatives that spans decades of music history. The studio in this townhouse is the engine room of that output. And it is a wealth engine in the truest sense, the physical space from which hundreds of millions of dollars in music, royalties, publishing rights, and performance income have originated. The piano room, art as sacred space. Adjacent to the studio and yet distinct from it in energy and purpose is what might be called, simply, the piano room. This is not a performance space. It is not configured for recording or production. It is a room built entirely around the act of playing, of sitting at a piano and making music for no audience, no deadline, and no commercial purpose other than the maintenance of the artistic soul that makes everything else possible. The room is intimate and quiet, warm lighting, minimal decoration because the piano demands full attention, and anything competing for visual focus diminishes the depth of the experience. A single high-end concert grand piano sits at the room's center, positioned to catch natural light from the window while remaining acoustically sheltered from the ambient noise of the city outside. Shelves of sheet music, notebooks filled with lyric fragments, and a small seating area for the occasional collaborator or trusted listener complete the space. This room is where Alicia Keys goes to remember why she does all of it. Not the Grammy performances, not the touring, not the brand partnerships and production deals and Broadway productions. The piano, the notes, the feeling of a melody resolving into itself. She has spoken in countless interviews about the piano as her most essential relationship, more consistent, more honest, and more sustaining than any career milestone or commercial achievement. Building a room in her home that honors that relationship exclusively, without compromising it with professional demands, is the act of a woman who understands the difference between her career and her art and knows that the career is only possible if the art is protected. Family at the center: Egypt, Genesis, and Swizz Beatz. In 2010, Alicia Keys married Kasim Dean, known professionally as Swizz Beatz, one of hip-hop's most celebrated producers and creative minds. Their union is one of the music industry's most genuinely functional creative partnerships. Two artists with distinct but complementary aesthetics, deep mutual respect, and a shared philosophy about the relationship between artistic integrity and commercial success. They have two sons together. Egypt Daoud Dean was born on October 14, 2010. Genesis Ali Dean was born on December 1, 2014. Both boys have grown up inside this townhouse, surrounded by music, art, and the kind of creative household energy that shapes a child's relationship with imagination from the earliest age. Alicia has been extraordinarily intentional about her son's upbringing, particularly around the intersection of creativity and education. She has spoken openly about homeschooling elements, about travel as a form of cultural education, and about the importance of exposing Egypt and Genesis to art, music, and human experience beyond the bubble of celebrity life. The home reflects this philosophy. There are instruments available for the boys to explore not as pressure or expectation, but as invitation. There are books everywhere. Art from multiple cultures and traditions covers the walls. The kitchen table is a place for conversation as much as meals. Swizz Beatz maintains his own creative workspace within the townhouse, a reflection of how deeply the couple's professional lives are integrated with their personal ones. His art collection, which is one of the most significant private collections of contemporary art owned by any figure in the music industry, is woven throughout the home's interior spaces. Pieces by Jean-Michel Basquiat, Cause, and Kehinde Wiley, among dozens of others, turn the townhouse's walls into a living gallery. This art is not decorative. It is educational, inspirational, and financially appreciating simultaneously. Once again, quiet wealth in plain sight. The business empire behind the music. Here is the section that the Grammy biography always underserves. Alicia Keys is not simply a recording artist with a large catalog. She is a business architect whose commercial intelligence has shaped a portfolio that will generate income for decades beyond her last recording session. Her net worth, estimated at approximately $150 million as of 2025 and 2026, reflects the full breadth of that architecture. Music royalties from 15 Grammy wins and over 65 million albums sold worldwide provide consistent passive income from a catalog that does not diminish with time. It compounds as new generations discover her music through streaming platforms, film and television licensing, and sampling. Songs in a Minor alone continues generating royalty income 25 years after its release. That is the power of owning your masters and your publishing rights, a fight Alicia waged early and won completely. Beyond the music catalog, she co-founded Keep a Child Alive, a nonprofit organization dedicated to providing life-saving treatment and support to children and families affected by HIV and AIDS in Africa and India. The organization has raised tens of millions of dollars and reflects her consistent commitment to using her platform as a tool for genuine humanitarian impact rather than reputational management. She produced the Broadway musical Hell's Kitchen, drawing directly on her own Hell's Kitchen origins and the transformative power of a piano in a one-room apartment. The production received extraordinary critical acclaim and multiple Tony Award nominations, extending her creative and commercial reach into the theater world and adding a new category of intellectual property to her already formidable portfolio. Her work as a coach on The Voice introduced her to an entirely new audience demographic, adding television income and brand exposure while reinforcing her reputation as a mentor and teacher, a role she has inhabited naturally since the early days of her career when she mentored younger artists at Clive Davis's J. Records. She launched her own wellness and beauty brand, Keys Soulcare, rooted in the self-care philosophy she has championed publicly since her decision in 2016 to stop wearing makeup on her public appearances, a decision that generated global conversation, significant media coverage, and ultimately proved to be the founding narrative of a commercially successful brand built on authenticity rather than aspiration. Each of these ventures is interconnected. The music builds the audience builds the brand builds the product builds the investment builds the freedom to make more music. It is a wealth cycle, as elegant and as intentional as any musical composition she has ever written. The wellness architecture of the home. A detail of Alicia Keys' home life that deserves its own space in this conversation is the deliberate design of wellness into the townhouse itself. Since her public decision to embrace a makeup-free lifestyle in 2016, a decision rooted in a deeper journey towards self-acceptance and authentic living, she has spoken extensively about the role of physical environment in supporting mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. The townhouse reflects this. There is a dedicated meditation and yoga space, quiet, naturally lit, stripped of the visual noise that characterizes the rest of the home's rich, layered aesthetic. This room is intentionally minimal. It is a space of subtraction in a life of abundance, a daily reminder that stillness is as productive as action when it is applied with intention. The kitchen is designed around nourishment as a conscious practice stocked with ingredients that reflect her wellness philosophy, laid out for the kind of home cooking that grounds a family in daily ritual. The master suite is configured for genuine, deep rest blackout curtains, temperature-controlled, free of screens, a space where the demands of a global career are required to wait outside the door until morning. These wellness spaces are not incidental features of a luxury home. They are structural investments in the sustained creative output that funds everything else. An artist who does not sleep cannot write. An artist who does not find stillness cannot access depth. Alicia Keys built the conditions for excellence directly into the architecture of where she lives. That is what separates the artists who produce one great record from the artists who produce 8 across a quarter century without ever losing the thread of what makes their work matter. The quiet wealth of creative ownership. Step back from the townhouse and look at the full picture. A girl from Hell's Kitchen, a one-room apartment, a secondhand piano. 25 years later, a Harlem townhouse with a professional studio, a grand piano room, a wellness sanctuary, an art collection worth millions, 2 sons being raised inside a living creative education, and a net worth of $150 million built almost entirely from the ownership of her own ideas. That is not luck. That is not even purely talent. That is the application of a single principle, held consistently from the moment she was old enough to understand it. Own what you create. Fight for the publishing rights. Fight for the master recordings. Fight for the creative control. Fight for the right to decide which partnerships serve your art and which ones simply serve a balance sheet. And build a home, a physical, architectural home that protects the creative process that makes all of it possible in the first place. The Townhouse is the quiet wealth thesis made concrete. It is simultaneously a family sanctuary, a creative studio, an art collection, a brand headquarters, and a property asset in one of the world's most valuable real estate markets. Every dollar spent on it serves multiple purposes simultaneously. That layered thinking where a single investment carries multiple returns is the financial philosophy of Alicia Keys, expressed in brick, wood, stone, and the sound of a piano at 5 in the morning when the city is still and the music is only for her. Creative spaces can be wealth engines when paired with smart ownership. Alicia Keys is the proof. 15 Grammy Awards, $150 million, a Broadway production, a wellness brand, a publishing catalog that will outlast all of us, and a townhouse in Harlem where a piano still sits at the center of everything, exactly the way it did in that one-room apartment in Hell's Kitchen when she was 7 years old. The address changed. The instrument remained. And the discipline to protect both the art and the business that surrounds it built a legacy that no single accolade could ever fully contain. Subscribe for more homes that double as creative studios, the artists who understood that the most important investment they could ever make was in the physical space where their best work begins. Because creativity and quiet wealth are not opposites. In the hands of someone like Alicia Keys, they are the same thing.